Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So a whole bunch of awesome news. HBO was at the TCAs this past week. They teased a whole bunch of really cool stuff that's coming down the road. There are more episodes coming than we originally thought, which is awesome. There's also news on the spinoff that they are now very definitely doing. So I'll say new round of the Game of Thrones giveaway starts now. It's for one of the enhanced editions of the books. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. Winners are usually announced at the end of videos if there's a round that's ending. Be sure to click that bell to enable alerts so that you don't miss anything. So a whole bunch of news, all of it is really good. It's like the stuff that you want to hear that make you feel a little bit better, even though Game of Thrones is like slowly coming to an end. So number 5, the HBO people were presenting all their new series for this year to the television critics this past week. They always get a ton of Game of Thrones questions, even though they didn't bring any Game of Thrones stuff. They revealed that the show has not been formally renewed for season 8 just because they're still going back and forth on what the final episode count is going to be, meaning we could get more episodes next year for season 8. Right now, this year, season 7 is capped at 7 episodes. It sounds like a bummer, but each of the episodes is going to be longer, crazier. In looking back at the previous seasons, I don't really think of any of the older episodes as filler, but more money and more action going into fewer episodes sounds like a good thing. Right now, season 8 is supposed to be 6 episodes, so when they say there could be more episodes, that could turn into 7, it could turn into 8. There's just like a set number of hours that Dan and Dave wanted to tell, and it's probably going to be a while before they decide because they don't start filming again till way later this year. They'll probably have some more news about that when we get to Comic-Con. Number 4, the money is also a big reason for fewer episodes, but HBO is happy to spend it. Each new season, it gets more and more expensive to do Game of Thrones because they're doing bigger battles, they're doing more dragons. So just for example, this is totally nuts, just to break down some of the finances on Game of Thrones. During season 6, the episodes cost an average of about $10 million per episode. That's about $100 million for the season. The Battle of the Bastards episode was way more than that. So just for example, a normal episode of an hour-long drama on a big network, like a really big show, is closer to like $3 or $4 million per episode. On a smaller cable network, it's way less than that. So HBO is just like shoveling money out to do episodes of Game of Thrones. They're totally happy to spend as much as it takes to make it as crazy as possible. But there's a limit to that. Like they just can't spend $250 million on a single season of TV. They don't get that much money from subscribers. That's where HBO's money comes from. They don't sell ads on their stuff. They get money when people subscribe to HBO's channel. So number 3, that's where you get to the spinoff. One way to keep those costs under control is to start a spinoff where you get to wipe the slate clean, bring in a bunch of new actors that don't cost as much, and you can do a really awesome story at a vastly smaller price point. So this past week, in the same breath, when they were talking about doing more episodes during season 8, they were also asked about the spinoff. They get asked about spinoffs every year, and they typically say the same thing. You know, maybe we're thinking about it, we're probably going to do a spinoff. This year, though, they said that they would be stupid to not do a spinoff. So if you're starting to worry that there might be a time when there is no Game of Thrones on television, that's probably not going to happen. It will be a prequel, but they haven't decided on what that's going to be. George R. Martin is still finishing Winds of Winter, which he says is going to be done this year. We'll talk about that eventually too. But he's been pointing them to all the best stuff to do for a spinoff. Remember, a spinoff would have to go for about 7 seasons, so it just depends on what kind of material they want to mine, in how much action they want it to be, what kind of series they want it to be. So the big 3 picks right now are Tales of Dunk and Egg, Aegon's Conquest, and The Dance of the Dragons. If you haven't read the books, I've already done videos about what these stories are, so I'll add some links at the end of this video. But HBO in general sounds like it wants to keep the Game of Thrones creative team, like the producers, the people that write it, the people that actually make it, like the actual people that work on it day to day, together for whatever the spinoff is going to be. But last year, Dan and Dave said that the main series might be the end of their day-to-day involvement. So even if they do bring in new showrunners, it sounds like Dan and Dave would still stay on as producers. The basic takeaway is that the people that give you Game of Thrones would essentially be the same people that would give you a spin-off. It's just that behind the scenes, some things would get shuffled around a little. And even though he's still finishing A Song of Ice and Fire, George R. R. Martin would probably increase his role, especially at the initial stages, just to make sure that everything started off on the right foot. So if you came late to Game of Thrones, what happened early on is that George R. R. Martin was heavily involved with the first couple of seasons. He wrote episodes each season, but then as things got on later, he started to get pulled away by the book series trying to finish that. So right now, he isn't as involved with Game of Thrones on television as he used to be. That would probably change with the spin-off in a couple years. So number 2, what about the stories? So I listed the 3 big picks, but it really just depends on how much easier it gets to do the CG dragons and really like any of the other CG elements that they include. Usually special effects get better and cheaper each year. So if you go all the way back to season 1 and watch Daenerys hatch her dragons, the CG looks okay, it still holds up relatively well, but it was still kind of expensive at the time. Today, just a few years later, it's way easier, way cheaper to do that. But today they're doing really big dragons, so they're still really expensive, but what they're doing today will be cheaper tomorrow. That's the big takeaway. So it's not going to be hard to do CG dragons in a couple years. So Dance of the Dragons or Aegon's Conquest would be the most WTF action-packed stories for them to adapt. Aegon's Conquest would be a little cheaper just because there are only 3 dragons instead of a bunch of people fighting each other on Dragonback. I can't even imagine how expensive it would be to do regular Dragon Rider battles. It would be the best thing ever, but it would probably crush HBO's budget. So on the other side of that, Tales of Dunk and Egg would be the cheapest because there are no dragons. They're just like a bunch of big crowd shots. There are a lot of tourneys, a lot of regular fighting on horseback. It's a really fun story. It's kind of like a buddy road trip story. It's not really a comedy, but there is a lot of comedy. Imagine Brienne and Podrick riding around. That's kind of what Tales of Dunk and Egg would be like.
I almost forgot. I have one more gift.
I don't need a squire.
Of course you do.
So it's a really fun story. George R. R. Martin said that he's writing more for those characters in the future too, but it doesn't really have big Red Wedding level WTF twists like Aegon's Conquest or Dance of the Dragons. Most of you guys seem like you would rather see Dance of the Dragons than Aegon's Conquest, just because a lot of what Daenerys is doing in these final seasons is very similar to what Aegon the Conqueror did, so it'd kind of be like doing the same story if they went back and did the Conquest. But the Dance of the Dragons has all the really crazy stuff, but it's about a very different event with very different groups of characters. But again, all really solid picks. What would probably happen is that they wouldn't actually settle on what the spin-off is going to be until after the final season of Game of Thrones. They'll probably focus all their energy on marketing season 8 next year, and then as we get towards the end of that, they'll announce what the next spin-off is going to be, develop that, and then there might be like a year or 2 before they premiere that. So if the main series goes off the air in 2018, that means it might be 2020 before we see the premiere of the spinoff. But number 1, when are we actually going to get new footage of season 7? We got a little teaser at the end of last year, which is sort of in keeping with their style. Like they have like really small stuff that they'll drop in December, then in January, the first trailer usually drops. But because when they were filming season 6, it was like their normal filming schedule, they had finished filming most of the episodes by the end of 2015. So they had all the footage they needed to cut trailers. This past year was different because winter has come to Westeros, so they had to wait till later in the year to start filming, meaning that they're a couple months behind. So if the first real trailer usually dropped in January, that means we might not get the first season 7 trailer until February or March. Because there's such a big delay this year, like season 7 might not premiere till late in June, they'll probably try to do some extra cool stuff just to keep the fans happy, market the series, and just keep everybody calmed down till the premiere. So as of right now, they're still filming episodes, but they've filmed most of the series. They have as much footage as they need to cut a trailer, so it will probably be a little while, but they have a new series called The Young Pope that's premiering later this month. They might use that to promote some Game of Thrones stuff, so we might get some more Game of Thrones teasers while that series is on the air. But as for the actual footage, last year was all about teasing Jon Snow's return, Daenerys breaking the wheel of Slaver's Bay. This year, it's all about Daenerys' conquest in the War for the Dawn. So expect whatever teasers they drop to hype up Daenerys versus Cersei in Jon Snow versus the Night's King. So everyone's converging before a big season-long battle with the White Walkers next year. So this is all about the characters coming together, clashing, sort of like a War of the Five Kings, only now much more centralized. So I'll still be doing weekly bonus videos until the season gets here. If you want to leave requests for my next Game of Thrones video, just put it in the comments. I'll say congratulations to this week's Game of Thrones giveaway winner. Pairlord, you win a copy of one of the enhanced editions of the books. Please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. There was a new round in this video. I'll just announce the winner the next time I post a Game of Thrones video. New Sherlock finale posting tonight, then a whole bunch of comic book stuff posting on Monday. While you guys wait for that to post, you can click here for that Dance of the Dragons video, and you can click here for the Aegon the Conqueror video. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.